Welcome to We Be Parents, where parent doctors Matthew Lederman and Alona Polde explore current parenting topics, share stories, and help bring families closer together.
Welcome to another episode of We Be Parents. Hi, I'm Dr. Alona Polde.
And I'm Dr. Matthew Lederman.
And we're so excited to have you join us today. So we're going to start with headlines and heartlines.
Headlines and Heartlines,
where we play with ideas, answer burning questions, tackle some headlines we've read or heartlines we've experienced, and find the balance between taking things seriously and keeping a sense of humor. So let's get started. Today's heartline miss, actually, was we went to the pool a couple days ago with the girls. And there was a mother of 3 young children. I would probably say they were maybe 10, 5, and 3. And they were all playing in the pool. And all of a sudden we hear, "You need to get out of the pool. You are being disrespectful and time out. So get out of the pool." Everybody just stopped for a second. And
so everybody got out of the pool but her daughter.
But her 10-year-old daughter. As this woman was speaking to her 10-year-old daughter, and you could see the daughter came face to face as the mother is screaming and the daughter is responding, "No, I don't want to get out of the pool." And it was escalating. "Get out of the pool right now." And as this kept going, all I could see was the daughter's face just cringing in what, in my mind, looked like complete disgust toward her mother. And she eventually did. She left the pool and she sat on the sidelines and she waited.
But they had this staring, the kid was looking with disgust and these angry eyes, and the mom, and they were looking at each other.
Yeah, she had a sneer on her face and
they
her
were going back and
teeth
forth.
were clenched.
It was so uncomfortable to watch. I can only imagine what it was like to be in that.
To experience that in that moment. And I know I was looking at Matt, the girls were looking at each other and just looking around the pool, like nobody knew what to do because it was so extremely uncomfortable. Just like you said, I can't imagine what it felt like for that little girl. And so she eventually stepped out of the pool and waited till her mom called her back.
Did she actually get out of the pool, or did she sit on the steps?
Yeah, she sat on the steps. But
like she wouldn't even, she so wanted to have autonomy that,
yes,
and that she didn't completely get out. She just got out of the pool a little bit. And the mom, who clearly could not overpower this daughter, was going to just accept that, even though nobody got their way fully. The daughter didn't get out of the pool, and the daughter didn't actually get to stay in the pool.
And it was completely a disconnected response.
Disconnected is a nice way to say it.
It's a nice way to say it.
It was
Yes.
painful. It was clearly hurtful for everybody. I imagine the mom was in probably more pain than the daughter was. And the daughter was in a lot of pain. But what I saw was a bunch of people in tremendous pain.
Yeah, and a very typical response when there's that type of authoritarian approach toward children. There's a fork in the road. They can either submit or rebel. And this young girl tried to do both. She tried first with a little bit of rebellion. She's only 10, so that's a limited thing that she could do. But she tried to exert her autonomy. She tried to stare down her mom. She tried to stay in the pool. And eventually she submitted. But that was going to come at a huge cost.
And that, to me, you nailed it right on the head there. If we knew the cost of this type of parenting style, I believe parents would never do it. I don't think they really connect to the cost, to the relationship.
Right. For any of us that were raised in authoritarian households, think about how you felt as a kid. Put yourself in that position, how it robbed us of autonomy, of agency, of a voice, of feeling like we mattered, all of that stuff. And how did that play out as far as connection to our parents?
And I don't want parents to feel guilty or ashamed, because I think you can go there too. I've yelled at my children in ways that I really regretted afterwards. I've been yelled at by my parents. It happens. So the goal here is to not condemn the yelling or this style of parenting. It's to really bring awareness to the idea that there's other ways that can actually be more effective and less costly. And I think a lot of us don't think about other options. And the whole goal of the Webe Parents podcast is to show people a different way so that they still get their needs met, but without the cost.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that you pointed that out, because it's not about criticizing or judging, but about offering an alternative solution. And for some of us, myself included, because I have also been on the other end of that, being the one that's yelling at my children, is an opportunity to approach it with compassion, collaboration, and connection, and to see how the different outcomes play out.
I can't think of a time where I yelled to meet my needs and I felt good afterwards. We've yelled at each other, and never have I left saying, well, that was a good idea. So there's people that stand behind, what do you mean? This is what you got to do. And my question, my proposal is, if you could meet the needs in another way, wouldn't you prefer that? And that's been my experience, that whenever I can do it without yelling and screaming or demanding obedience.
Right, because what are you actually getting from that? Why are your kids obeying you? They're obeying you because they're afraid of whatever consequences might come from not obeying you. They're not connecting to their internal, intrinsic values and desire to show up differently. And then I would even argue that in their rebellion, they're going to choose, even if they want to show up differently, they're not going to. They're going to put their foot down and exert their autonomy through rebellion.
Right. And kids naturally want to do what meets their needs and is aligned with their values. Kids naturally care about other people, but they can't care about other people if they're in pain or they don't feel that they have care.
I would say none of us can.
Right.
Who wants to care for someone when they don't feel cared for by that person?
Right. So when people think that kids just have to be molded and kids are rotten and kids need to be disciplined because all they care about is themselves, I don't believe that's the case. I believe that sometimes they care about themselves because they haven't been supported or educated to care about other people, or they don't have the care themselves to allow the space to care for other people. And sometimes people do that over and over again, where they just don't experience care and love and trust and connection. And it becomes this power struggle for, hey, I better get what's mine because no one else is going to care for me. And that leads to an inability or a disconnection to the impact on other people. You're so focused on getting your own needs met, and you have this belief as a child that nobody else is really going to care about me or respect me, so I'm not going to care and respect them. But I think if you go underneath that, everybody wants to care for everybody else, especially when they trust that they're going to get care as well. What do you think about them?
I completely agree with that. I think our natural inclination is to care for one another. That enhances our ability even to survive. People survived in tribes and villages, not alone. But that only can happen, that ability to expand, to be expansive, to want to give, starts with feeling like you matter, feeling like you're cared for, feeling like you have value. And you're so much more willing to show up in that way for others.
You do that really well, actually. I know when I'm really upset, I don't want to contribute to you. I don't want to help with dinner. I don't want to do extra laundry. I don't want to clean up. I don't want to do any of that. And I notice with you, even if we're in a fight, you still will make sure, hey, I'm going to help you get dinner ready, or I'm going to make dinner, or I did the laundry for you anyway. And I think that's a special call out that people are at different levels. But just to point out that I care about you deeply, but when I'm triggered or upset, I lose connection to my care for you because I'm so focused on my own pain. And maybe that happens for you, maybe that doesn't. I don't see it very often, but I think different people are different there. Would you agree?
I think people are different there at different times. And this is a perfect segue into our next segment, which is the cheers and tears. Hey there, parents. We're hoping you're enjoying our podcast. We'd love to hear from you about what you like and what you want to hear more of. So please take a moment to give us a rating and review. That not only helps us improve, but also helps other parents find us. The more ratings we receive, the more people will hear about this podcast. Thank you for your support and for being part of our community. This episode of Webe Parents is brought to you by Webe Calm, the child calmer designed by doctors and loved by parents. Struggling with bedtime routines or managing your child's anxiety? Webe Calm transforms deep breathing into a fun and engaging activity, helping kids find their inner calm. Perfect for bedtime stressful moments or anytime your child needs a little extra help to stay calm. Visit webecalm.com to learn more and bring tranquility to your family. We be calm because we be in this together.
Cheers and tears.
Cheers and tears are where we take a moment to celebrate our successes and acknowledge or mourn our struggles and our losses. And we can share something that went really, really well and something that totally flopped. And on this segment of Cheers and Tears, we're going to be talking about the repair, and we're going to get into what that is later. But you're talking about contribution, and sometimes I am very much not willing to contribute. And here's an example. So my 10-year-old daughter, Jordan, brought a friend over, and she was so excited. She was having a sleepover, and we had this whole day planned. And part of the plan was to go to an escape room and to have that experience all together because Jordan loves escape rooms. And so we get to the escape room. I'm making all these arrangements to make all this happen for her and her friend. We get to the escape room, and it wasn't quite what Jordan imagined it would be. So we come out of that experience, and my 10-year-old daughter looks like her dog died. She's grumbling and mumbling and has these angry eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on here? Okay. We get in the car and we talk about what we're doing next. And she doesn't care. Whatever we want to do doesn't matter, in that tone. And I got so triggered. I had put so much effort into what this day could look like to give her a great experience. And that's what I'm hearing back. And so I looked at her and in a very raised voice said, "Jordan, what is going on?" And immediately, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew, ooh, I didn't feel good about that one. And I could see it reflected in her eyes. Her eyes got big and these doe eyes. And she just looked at me with what was so apparently pain.
She even gets a little bit of water in the eye.
Yes, her eyes got a little teary and she just shut down. And I felt terrible that I stepped into that reactivity rather than take the pause and really want to connect. Totally lost that come from care and compassion and curiosity. Went straight to criticism and judgment. So that's where I was.
So that's your tear.
That is my tear. But the beauty was that we had an opportunity to make it a cheer. And it was using the tool that we like to call the repair. And the repair came as this. Jordan came back to me after her friend left the next day. She came to me and she said, "Mom, can you give me a heart hug?" And in our family, a heart hug is an opportunity to just hear the other person without any criticism, judgments, advice, anything. You're just really hearing and reflecting what you're hearing. You can learn more about the heart hug tool in episode 1 as it is featured there. I said, sure, Jordan, I'd love to give you a heart hug. And she said, Mom, in the future, if there's something that I do that you don't like, can you please tell me privately? Now, in that moment, I had the opportunity to get defensive, which could have looked like, what do you mean, tell you quietly? You weren't being quiet about how disgruntled you were. Why should I be quiet about how that makes me feel? That could have been the approach, but that would not lead to the connection that I so desired with my daughter. And so in that moment in the heart hug, the repair was the ability to sit with her, to step into her shoes, to hear what she was sharing as a gift, as an opportunity.
So you were able to do that, and that's the cheer, is being able to step into the repair with her, to repair the connection.
Right, to repair the connection and to even guess how she was feeling.
Yeah, I love that.
I can imagine that you were feeling embarrassed and maybe had some shame come up for you, because here you are with your friend and I raised my voice at you.
And that to me is the key, is we're either going towards each other, deeper connection, or pulling away in disconnection. And this constant sort of tension, almost like a guitar string that you can pull tighter or you can get looser. And when you started off with the tear, maybe you pulled further away, but then you came back closer together. And that is the beauty of the repair, is that it's this continuum that's dynamic. It's not either you get it right or you get it wrong. When you think of that paradigm, it's static. There's nothing to fix.
Right.
Versus, it's a living, breathing thing, the connection between us. And sometimes we get a little disconnected, but then we can come right back together. And the repair is the tool that brings us back. And that leads us right into the topic and tool.
Topics and tools.
Which is about parents trying to be perfect. You can't make mistakes. If you got to get it right, a good parent gets it right. Bad parent gets it wrong, versus we all are doing our best, and sometimes we get disconnected in how we show up, but the repair allows us to come closer. And in fact, rather than be connected all the time, I think it's more powerful to be able to show children how when there's a rupture in the connection, you can restore it. Because then it's not so scary when there's a rupture in the connection. And you teach them the skills of repairing, which so many people don't have today.
Right. And I think the repair goes really beautifully hand in hand with what we like to also call the redo. I think they kind of go together. So the first part of the repair is the ability to hear the other person, to really acknowledge the pain that was stimulated through my behavior. And I could absolutely connect to that. And I could connect to Jordan's experience of it.
And you can do that when you are out of the paradigm of right, wrong. If you think you're a bad parent, if you make a mistake, you're going to be busy feeling shame. And it's going to be so overpowering that you can't get into their pain, because the more you touch their pain, the more you realize you were wrong.
Right.
So you have to step out of that paradigm to be able to effectively stay with the pain that was stimulated.
Absolutely. At that moment, I'm a parent who made a mistake, who really got into a mess.
And sometimes if you're busy feeling shame, like let's say you really lost your temper and smacked her, that can make you feel really shameful. And there's lots of parents I talk to that will lose their temper and spank their child. Now we got to deal with that shame before you can go into the repair. I think you did a little bit of work on yourself, because at first you're saying, oh boy, I see her eyes and I see her face and I can't believe you probably had an inner critic going, whether it was the extreme of a parent who lost their temper and actually hit their child, or just verbally said something that landed like a smack. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, for me, the gift was that I didn't keep going, that in seeing her eyes, I just stopped. And I was able to connect with at least putting a pin in it. And yeah, there's that moment of inner critic of, oh, why did I do that? Why couldn't I have just given it just a minute to breathe and connect with myself and then connect with her? And so it's a lot of self-judgment around my own misfire and my inability to better rein in, to respond, not react to it. And so competency comes up. And yeah, there is shame and there's that opportunity for self-empathy. Yeah, I messed up. And I know that in our family structure, I'm going to have an opportunity for repair. And if Jordan hadn't come up to me, that would have been something that I would have approached her about. And that would have taken a slightly different angle. It would have started with a redo, which is me owning the fact that I imagine that pain was stimulated there and I didn't feel good about my actions. And I'd like the opportunity to do them differently.
And I like that either she was going to come up to you or you were going to come up to her. But there was no option of just sliding it under the rug. When
No.
every disconnection you want to repair versus be in this state of artificial harmony where we all pretend that everything's okay and move on.
Because that feels so sticky, icky too. That whole afternoon, I felt like, well, I didn't want to bring it up again because her friend was there. So it was that state of artificial harmony where I knew that I wanted so much to talk to her about something, and it wasn't something that I could do right now. And having that lack of authenticity is not the connection. Living in that state of artificial harmony is not the type of connection that I want with those people that are most important to me.
And I imagine it sounds very liberating when you say that too. Right? You don't have to, there's no such thing as a good parent or a bad parent. There's parents that tend to the connection the best they can in every moment, and sometimes they got to come back and do a repair.
Right.
So I love that. And if we're going to go through the tool of the repair, there's just a few steps. And you started on the first step, which is assuming you're in a place to connect and you don't need to do self-empathy. When you brought in Jordan, you started with empathy, which was, hey, let me just connect to the pain that was stimulated in her. There's no explaining where you were coming from as the parent. There's none of that. It's, I imagine you're feeling this, and I'm guessing this is what's going on inside of you. And they say, yeah, imagine you're feeling really hurt and really wanting more kindness and care and how people talk to you, even if they don't like what you did. Yeah. And maybe more trust that I'm not going to lose my temper when something's bothering me. Yeah. That's probably scary, right? Yeah. So you just stay with their pain. And that is so healing. A lot of people are like, why do you want to bring their pain up? It's uncomfortable. It's actually the opposite. When you bring it up and hold it, it's very comforting. And then eventually it starts to just dissipate. After you've fully heard them, you ask, hey, is there more? No, you got it all. The next step then is to ask if they have space for your reaction. Can I share my reaction? And then they say, yeah, go ahead. And our reaction is, I have a lot of regret. Knowing what I know now, I really wish I handled that differently. Having the capacity and awareness I have right now, I really wish I showed up differently. And I have a lot of regret. I didn't meet my need for kindness and care and warmth and respect when I talk to you that way. So how does that feel? And you ask them, you're checking in, you're looking at them. There's a very tender connection there.
And that's a very hard thing to do, again, if you're in that right or wrong mentality, is does that translate when I say I have regret for how I showed up? Does that mean I'm wrong? Does that mean I'm a bad parent? Is that what that translates into? And if that's where we are, we're stuck on that. I can't say I regret it.
Regret and remorse are feelings when your actions were out of alignment with your values.
Yes.
And to your point, you can't connect to your values when you're busy feeling shame. And shame is a way that our body tries to get us back in alignment with our values. Shame is a signal that, hey, what you did is out of alignment. It's not in integrity with your values. But we don't want to think of ourselves as worthless people. That's the inner critic. That's how we were socialized and educated to get back in alignment with our values. Actually, not our values, but the values of our community and around us, to get back in line.
Right.
So yes, if you can connect to the regret and remorse, it's very helpful. And if you can't, you can name that. But the idea is, again, it's about the connection. The third step, which is also very healing for you as the parent, is to say, hey, do you have space to hear the needs I was trying to meet when I did what I did? And then if they have space, you can say, hey, I know I wish I did this differently. But the reason I was talking this way was I so wanted appreciation and acknowledgement for the effort I was making. And I so wanted celebration and working as a team to try and make this a fun time. And despite all the effort I put in, to see you disappointed, it didn't meet my need for working together to celebrate. And even if you are unhappy, I wish you acknowledged the work that I did put in to try and make this a good time. Can you see how that's what I was expressing, this sort of frustration and this need for that appreciation and acknowledgement? Even though the way I went about it did not meet my needs for kindness and warmth and respect and care and love. Can you see how both are true? And then they can say, yeah, I get it.
And they're much more willing to say, I get it, after the first step and the second step, which is acknowledging their pain and then sharing regret if that resonates.
So then those 3 steps are empathize with their pain, share your reaction, and then share the needs you were trying to meet with the actions you took, even though you wish you did it differently. So now we have the no skills to pro skills.
No skills to pro skills.
We try to highlight what it looks like without connection skills and then what it looks like with connection skills. And I think you did a little bit of that in the cheers and tears. What you could have said without connection skills, can you refresh?
Yeah. If Jordan had shared with me a request to pull her aside and tell her privately, I might have gotten defensive and just said, well, if you weren't so publicly disgruntled, I wouldn't have publicly said that to you, or we wouldn't have been in that situation. So it could have taken any of those paths leading to even more and more disconnection.
And those are usually signs that shame and guilt are on board for the parent, because we want to then point out, we weren't wrong, you were the problem.
Right.
So if they feel bad, the conventional paradigm is we got to find a perpetrator.
Right. If we're in a right-wrong mentality, then I either have to be right or I'm wrong. And if I'm right, you're wrong. So that could have absolutely been the route that could have been taken. And then
You could have also given her the silent treatment, just ignored her and withdrawn.
And I could have also been self-deprecating. So it could have come back to me. Oh, I'm such a terrible parent. Oh, I just totally failed you. I am so sorry. And again, that takes the focus off of Jordan's pain and puts it right back onto my pain, whether it's in an aggressive, active form or in a passive, docile form. And the idea behind the repair is not to place that focus on me, but to really give her space, or whoever it is, their space to share their experience and their pain.
And that would be the pro skills, is to be able to say, hey, I'm tending to my pain if I have any that's remaining. I do that internally, or I ask for help from a friend. I then approach my child for the repair and I hear their pain, and then I can stay with their pain. And that's the healing. And a lot of people, again, are going to say, do you really want to bring up their pain again, and how all the painful feelings they were feeling and all the stuff that I stimulated?
Well, here's the thing. Even if you don't bring it up, it exists. It exists for them. It exists for you, whether you talk about it or not. When you don't talk about it, it has a cost. So giving an opportunity to talk about it, to do it differently, to repair that connection is gold. I can't see a situation where you wouldn't want to try that approach.
And sometimes you can't repair right in the moment. There's times where we try to repair and they're not ready.
Right.
They're still angry. They're still hurt. They're still triggered. And that's okay too, because when you try this repair, if you go, oh, I'm all ready to try this new tool, and I go up to repair and they're withdrawn, or they say something to you that's anything but accepting of the repair, you can be like, why'd I put myself out there? And the idea would be to say, oh, they're just not ready. They're still in a little bit too much pain.
This will absolutely happen in the beginning stages as you begin to practice it, because
They're going to think you're coming to explain yourself.
Right. There hasn't been a trust that's been established. One, for space and repair, and two, to see that a repair can really be a gift, and it can be an opportunity to lean in, even if you're not 100% ready. That what comes back from that gift is so enriching to the soul and spirit that it can totally shift how you're feeling.
It takes time to build trust that the repair is going to be about them.
Yeah.
They're going to imagine that you're going to come and try and explain yourself.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I got upset was because of this, that, and the other. That's about trying to heal your guilt or trying to be seen differently.
For the
why
kids,
right.
And for the parents, there needs to be the trust that you can repair without being seen as the bad parent or the failed parent, right? That there's trust that just because you're hearing them doesn't mean that you are the perpetrator.
It's a hard shift to get rid of the perpetrator-victim paradigm, but it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving.
Absolutely, because in that paradigm, there is no
There's a winner and a
space
loser.
for connection.
There's a
Yeah.
winner and a loser.
And you're not connected.
Yeah.
So that's the bottom line is, what's the intention?
Bringing it home.
So as we think about how to bring this home, that's a really important piece to remember. And how to bring it home is, how do you start practicing this and implementing it into your own home? And it really is about that. It's about practicing. It's about being okay with making a mess. And now having the tool, the repair, to be able to clean up that mess.
We don't want less messes. We want more messes so that you can have an opportunity to practice, where the repair becomes so common that you see messes as an opportunity to bring more connection.
And is that the intention? If you're intending to connect with your kids, try on little things. It doesn't have to be a big explosion that will be your first attempt at a repair. It can be small little, oh, I had tone with my child. Oh, I raised my voice. Oh, I kind of lost my patience. Or I wish I'd, even just a note of, I wish I'd done that differently. Those are all opportunities for repair. And I like, Matt, maybe you could talk about how you do the fire drills in our family to really allow people to experience that almost in an exaggerated way so that it feels so safe when it's the real deal.
But the first step is this collaborative introduction. Say, hey, fam, I want to try something new. What do you think about there's something that we call the repair? And we explain what it is. And it's an invitation to the family to collaborate, saying, hey, when we have a belly flop and talk in a way that we wish we didn't, we can use this repair tool to help get us back to connection. And we explain the steps and we tell them how they go. And then we say, would you be open to trying this the next time we get into some hot water? If either of us come in hot, can we pause and repair then, or try redoing it? Or maybe we repair later. And usually if they're invited in versus this is something you have to do, they're going to be excited to try. And we explain how it works. We explain the steps. We say how it feels really good in our hearts. And then the fire drills are, I tell them, I'm going to be making messes on purpose, and you're not going to know the difference if it's real or not, so that you get to practice. And then I'll randomly get upset about something or say something that had tone. And I'll say, oh, sounds like there's a repair there. We need a repair. Who's ready to repair? And it's something small or it can be big. But when you're doing the fire drills, it's a small thing. Like they might drop a pen on the floor and I'll be like, how could you drop a pen on the floor? What were you thinking? And then they'll look at me. I go, oh, that just popped out. Can we do a repair real quick? And then they'll do the steps. And I'll be like, when I talk like that, and we do all the steps. And then when they're done, they'll even ask me, Dad, was that real or was that a fire drill? And I was like, that was a fire drill. And I high five them and we did great. And so it's really trying to make it fun and make it become this common language.
And build a trust in a fun and playful way where they start saying, you truly have this intention and you truly want to live this intention. And there might even be times where we have to repair the repair because it didn't work. One person wasn't ready. But the idea is that over time, they are building a total trust in this process.
And at dinner, we'll mine for it. Like, is there any repairs we could do today? Anything we could practice? Anything between us? Anything with your friends that we could role play? So maybe their friends don't want to repair, but we can role play their friends so they can practice.
And what empowerment for them to be able to circle back rather than stuff it down and pretend that it doesn't exist. I can only imagine the level of safety that provides for them to be able to express their voice and have it be heard.
Yeah, it's really powerful. So I really recommend people give it a try. And it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to follow our steps exactly, but you get the gist, you get the intention. And the intention is more important than the specific words.
And it could be something that you try with your children. It could be something that you try with your partner, but really just getting into the habit of practicing it and including it in your bag of tricks.
Right. The reason I'm so good at repairing is because I make so many messes. So I've
That
repaired
is
with
true.
Alona, the kids, other people. I've repaired with strangers. It's anywhere.
I can vouch for that. No, I'm kidding.
So I'd like to leave with one last thing.
Just one last thing.
Yeah, I think for me, the one last thing is, what is the intention? How do I want to parent? How do I want to show up with my kids? And what do I ultimately want our relationship to look like? And when I really connect to that in my heart, I want a space where we can be authentic, where my children can have agency, and so can I. And we're invested in protecting that connection.
I like that. And for me, one last thing would be, as Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of nonviolent communication, would say, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly.
Absolutely. So go out and make those messes.
Yeah, so don't try to be perfect. Don't let perfectionism stop you from trying. So with that, I would love to hear from people. I know you would as well, around questions, cheers and tears, things that went well, things that haven't gone well, topics they'd love us to cover on the show here.
Even cheers and tears, what you liked about the episode, what you didn't like about the episode, what you'd like to see next time.
I only want to hear what they liked about it. So please email us at parents@webetogether.com, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the We Be Parents podcast. To hear what else Doctors Matt and Alona are up to, visit us at webeparents.com. Remember to try something you learned today. It just might be the first step in a new relationship with your kids.
Join us for the next episode of We Be Parents, where we'll dive into practical tools to tackle parent burnout and share heartwarming and humorous stories that every parent can relate to. Discover how to navigate the chaos of parenting, from funny mishaps like packing cat food in lunchboxes to heartfelt moments of connection and resilience. Plus, we'll introduce a powerful tool called Hearing Bossy to transform your family dynamics and strengthen relationships. Don't miss out on these valuable insights and more. Tune in next time for another engaging and supportive conversation.